This is the SASE session, so covering SASE, is everybody in the right place where you want to be? Just making sure none of you guys maybe are interested in storage or something like that. This will be a topic for SASE. So my first question will be is how familiar are you already with SASE? I can take you basically from the beginning, from definitions of acronyms, or we can dive into other discussion topics. Any of you already familiar with SASE in depth? Security, right? SD-WAN, any of that type of stuff. Okay, all right. How many of you guys are engineers?
Yeah.
Okay. IT directors, CIOs. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Sometimes I get mixed crowds, right? And I want to make sure not only am I talking about technology, how that also translates, to business value. So, all right. So maybe we'll go ahead and we'll get started here. I always like this object here, the right tools matter. And the reason why that is the challenge we're trying to solve with HPE Aruba. If you watch them over the last few years, beginning with their acquisition of the SD-WAN company Silver Peak back in 2020, they've been investing very heavily into the wide area network space. Okay, and the reason that is because when we're talking with companies, we started coming across various themes, right? The first one is the world's changed, right? Networks aren't built the way they were before. You don't have employees located in the branch offices anymore necessarily all the time. Applications are no longer housed within private data centers, right? They're everywhere. Users are everywhere. So number one, the main concern that they have is how do we secure all of that traffic? How do we secure our applications? How do we secure our users? Number two, how do we consolidate solutions, right? Companies are always looking to reduce cost. And so there are a number of different security products out there, routing type products, traffic optimization, WAN optimization products. But once you start having multiple of those, not only does it increase cost, but it also increases complexity. And when you increase complexity, right, you increase risk. And so another, if you're on the business side of things, you're looking, how can we mitigate risk? How can we reduce complexity? How can we reduce cost potentially? And then the third thing is, how do we guarantee user experience? How do we ensure user experience? Because you all know users they don't care where they are, and they don't care where their applications are. The accountant who's working at home wants everything to work just like it always has, right? And so those are the challenges of why HPE Aruba Networking has been investing very heavily into the wide area network space, first with the acquisition of Silver Peak in 2020, and then now recently with the acquisition of Axis Security about 6 months ago, and that's an SSE platform. So you're going to hear, if you go out and Google, if you talk to anybody and you ask them, what is SASE, what is SD-WAN, what is SSE, you're going to get all kinds of different, right, different definitions. If you Google it, it doesn't help you at all, right? I read the definition and I'm like, what does that even mean? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what those are, but essentially, I'll give you the definitions, what the way HPE Aruba looks at it. Okay. So the first thing to know, if you ever hear the term SASE, Secure Access Services Edge, essentially it is not a solution. It is an architecture. Okay. So it's made up of the concept of zero trust, plus an SD-WAN solution, plus an SSE solution. SSE is a cloud security provider. So if a company employs all three of those, they are said to have a SASE architecture. Now, do you need an SD-WAN solution to employ an SSE solution or vice versa? No, you don't, right? You can use any of the solutions, whether they be individual or together. But if you use all three of these concepts, then you have what Gartner calls a SASE architecture, okay? So what is zero trust? Any Navy vets here? I always like to ask this question. My father was in the Navy. This axiom resonates with Navy people. In God we trust, all others we track. Okay. The legacy security posture or security philosophy that companies had was, once you were on the network, we trusted you, right? So if you're an employee, you come in and you get onto the network via Wi-Fi, you're trusted. We trust you. Well, something you may have heard over the past couple of years is this concept of zero trust. So in other words, even after you authenticate to the network, the company's policy is we're still not going to trust you. We're going to monitor all of your traffic, right? And if any of any parameter of the security posture changes, we're going to cut you off, right? We never trust you. Essentially, we'll allow you access and will allow you access to what you need. That's called basically least privileged access. So in other words, let's take another example. If you went remote away from the office and you connected in via VPN client right to your network, you're on that network and you can move around within that network. Concept of zero trust says that we only give you access to what you need. So if you only needed access to an application, that's all you get access to, right? You only needed access to a server, that's all you get access to. You can't move around within that network. So zero trust means we don't trust you, we never trust you, we track you, and we also only give you access to what you need. Good morning, guys. Hey, come on in. We're just talking a little bit. This is the SASE session, right? Okay, everybody in the right place? Good, okay. So again, oh, and I guess I forgot to do introductions. My name is Jason Anderson. I'm a channel SE with HPE Aruba Networking, specifically for their Edge Connect product line, which is SD-WAN, SSE, SASE. So we were just talking about previously what exactly SASE was. We're talking about the investments that HPE has made over the last several years in the wide area network space. First with the acquisition of Silver Peak and SD-WAN company back in 2020. And then now with the acquisition of Axis Security, which is an SSE company. We did that about 6 months ago. So we were talking exactly what SASE was. We said there's a bunch of definitions out there, and if you talk to different people, you're going to get a whole bunch of different answers. So this is what it is for HPE. We come from. Talked about how SASE is not a solution, it's an architecture. So if a company employs all three of these, right, then they have a SASE architecture. But you don't need to. You can employ an SSE solution without an SD-WAN solution, vice versa. So then we were talking exactly what zero trust is, and the concept of zero trust. So what is SSE? SSE, a simple way to think about it, is the consolidation of security products, multiple security products and features onto a single cloud-delivered platform, okay? And so with Access, it collapses 3 different features, solution sets onto the platform. SWG, known as Secure Web Gateway, you may hear it referred to as SWG, is concerned with all traffic going to the internet, right? Just general internet traffic. So wherever one of your employees are at, their traffic going to the general internet. This is where all your URL filtering, DNS filtering, malware inspection, all of SSL inspection, all of that is done in the SWG portion of the feature. CASB, or Cloud Access Security Broker, is concerned with access to SaaS applications. Okay, so in other words, if you have like a company box or Salesforce or something like that, you can control who has access to it, but then also, what they can do. Can they upload files to Box? Can they download files? You can get very creative. ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access, is concerned about access into private resources. Essentially, you may hear this being called VPN 2.0, VPN replacement. It's a replacement to the current or the legacy VPN architecture of having a VPN concentrator on site where you can, you connect to the concentrator and you have access to the network. We'll talk a little bit more about it later going on. Delivered on a cloud platform. Any questions about those 3 before we move on? Okay. Delivered on a cloud platform. So Axis is built on all 4 hyperscalers, okay? We are not deploying our own infrastructure around the world, and we are not deploying VMs or anything like that. We are deploying containers across all 4 hyperscalers, giving us about over 350 on-ramps around the world where users will get onto the platform and then where you can enforce all of the security. So it does a couple of different things. Let me go back one. So we talked about earlier the discussions, right? Why has HPE Aruba been investing so much into the space? And it's around conversations we've been having with customers about the changing dynamic. Everybody's going home. Users are located everywhere. Applications are located everywhere. We talked about the three main things that we hear. Number 1, how do we secure all of that traffic? Number 2, how do we reduce complexity, reduce the number of solutions? And number 3, how do we guarantee user experience? So as you can see here, we're collapsing, right? Multiple security products, multiple security features onto one platform, reducing that complexity, reducing risk, reducing cost. And then we're ensuring user experience, right? because we're built on all four hyperscalers, the agent that employees will have on their laptops, iPhones, iPads, whatever, they will actually, wherever they are in the world, they're going to connect to the four closest on-ramps of each of the hyperscalers. So in other words, their agent will connect to the closest on-ramp for AWS, Azure, GCP, and Oracle. Okay, so they're going to have four different paths that they can take to the applications that they're trying to reach. Depending on which path is the best, that's the path they're going to take. Okay, they're going to measure the round trip time and the conditions of that link. So you can see already where from wherever they are in the world, they're going to take the best path to their applications, but also now that they have backup paths in case anything happens to that, right? So if you're familiar with solutions like AWS Global Accelerator, that's what we're a part of with each of the hyperscalers' respective solutions. Okay, so that gives us over 350 on-ramps in the world. Any questions about that? Okay, so use cases for SSE, right? First of all, third-party contract access. You can give access to your internal applications via an agent model or an agentless model. Okay, so with the agent model, that's something you want for your employees. Because employees, that's where you get all your SSL inspection, right? That's where you can implement SWIG, you can implement CASB, as well as ZTNA, giving them access to internal applications. Well, let's say you have third-party contractors, software developers, that you only need them 30, 60 days, and they need access to a database or a platform within your network. You don't have to deploy an agent on them, right? They can access those resources through the Access Cloud, through that portal, agentlessly. Now, you won't be able to do things like SSL encryption or decryption. You won't be able to enforce SWIG or CASB, but you're probably not concerned about enforcing SWIG or CASB on those guys, right? So that's one use case. The second, it's a replacement for VPN, but also very flexible for your third-party contractors. You don't have to ship them laptops with agents, things like that. The second use case that you might find interesting is if your company is doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions, right? If you do a merger, sometimes you run into the problem of having overlapping IP space, right, with other companies. And so you have to wait till the networks get merged and you're creating VRFs and you're natting traffic, all that stuff. Well, you can give access, right, via an agent or agentlessly to the applications that the companies need to reach into your platform and not have to worry about merging the two networks or waiting for that to be done. Any questions about that at all? The third use case that we see a lot in the field is with the advent of the COVID shutdown. Companies, all their employees went home, and then next thing you know, everybody's trying to connect via VPN into those particular companies. They ran into bandwidth problems, licensing issues. So some companies out there, their solution to the problem was, we will split tunnel that traffic at the client, at the user client. So we'll allow them access into our networks via VPN like they have, but now we're not going to police their internet traffic or their SaaS traffic. We're letting that go directly to the internet. Well, with an agent-based SSE platform like Access, you don't have to make that trade-off, right? You can give them access via ZTNA as well as continue to enforce policy around internet-bound traffic and such. Any questions about that? Okay, great. So what is SD-WAN? SD-WAN is not new. It's been around for almost a decade now. And essentially, it's a better approach to building networks than we've always done. So most of my career has been as a network engineer, specifically on the route and switch side. And so this has always been appealing to me. But essentially, it automates many of the processes that we had to do as network engineers in the past. I'll give you an example. So prior to joining Silver Peak back in 2016, I worked for a global agricultural company. We had about 1,200 sites around the world. And I was on the route and switch team. We specifically supported those 1,200 sites and all the routers and switches at those sites. And one day, the CIO comes in and says, hey, we are moving to Office 365. Anybody remember the days when we had our own Exchange environments, right? Your own Exchange teams. Well, that's what we were at that point. And, I look over the Exchange guys and I'm like, because we sat right next to them, I'm like, how long have you guys known about this? And they're like, we're finding out about it now. It's like on an all hands call. And so they asked the network team, they said, how long is it going to take to be able to implement these changes? Well, we have to touch 1,200 routers, right? CLI, and make changes. We got to figure out how it's going to work, all that other stuff. So we told her about 9 months. Of course, you can imagine she's not happy about that. Well, today, with SD-WAN solution that we have, the Edge Connect SD-WAN solution, we could actually make those changes and push them out to all 1,200 sites in 10 minutes. Okay, 9 months to 10 minutes. To me, that's the value of SD-WAN. And there's a lot of other applications that you can find for SD-WAN, guaranteeing user performance, reducing costs, giving companies the ability to move away from private circuits into broadband internet circuits and moving away from things like MPLS. But I really think it just depends. There's a lot of use cases for SD-WAN. I think it's about moving at the speed of business. I've had to have those conversations with IT directors saying it's going to take 9 months to implement this solution, right? It's going to take 6 months to do this. It's going to take, a year maybe to merge this company in with ours. SD-WAN changes that game for you. It allows network infrastructure and configuration and management to move with the speed of business. Okay, you're no longer a business holdup or a department that is holding up business objectives. Okay. The third thing I would like to say is, when you talk about moving right in the SASE direction, and you talk about combining SD-WAN with SSE, what are the benefits of that? Remember, we talked about reducing complexity and how that helps to mitigate risk. And we talked about when users are away from the office, how SWIG and CASB and ZTNA allows for us to secure those users in your applications. Well, when you combine it with SD-WAN, now those same policies govern those users when they're at the branches, right? When they're in company locations. So now you actually have single policies that are enforcing security for users wherever they are in the world, whether they're in your branches, whether they're not in your branches. And so it becomes very powerful, I think, when you begin to combine the solutions. Now, obviously, not every company is there, and it's going to be a journey to get to a SASE type architecture, but it's definitely something to pursue. Depending on your company's goals, you can look at it. Perhaps you only need, ZTNA access at this point, or perhaps you only need the ability to move away from private MPLS circuits to internet circuits. What solution is best for you? Again, they're not dependent on each other, but if you can employ them together, I believe they make your network more flexible. You move at the speed of business, you're reducing risk, you're reducing costs, you're increasing efficiency. And those are all things that companies like to hear. Again, the right tools matter. And that's it. I'm going to leave it open to discussion from there. Any questions you guys have? Any points you found interesting?
So you're from Silver Peak, was it?
I was, yes. Yeah, I came over. Huh?
You're from the Silver Peak, from the Silver Peak acquisition.
I was, yes, yeah. So, yeah. And then, it's been good. Been about 3 years now, I guess.
Yeah, we're Aruba customers ourselves. We're from the County Office of Education.
Okay.
And we had some brief conversations with the Silver Peak folks.
Yeah.
Actually, a few over the last few years, but when you guys first came on board.
Yeah.
Haven't found a strong use case for the Silver Peak side of things yet.
Yes.
SD-WAN, I think we're still trying to weigh the cost benefit in terms of the added complexity of the infrastructure versus what you gain out of it.
Sure.
Haven't had a slam dunk sort of use case yet from our perspective.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of the SASE stuff yet.
Yeah.
From Aruba, so it's nice to kind of get caught up on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those who came in late, we purchased Access Security about 6 months. Brought it into the fold to basically complete our SASE story. We didn't have an SSE provider at that time, so about 6 months in. So it's been a good acquisition. It's a good platform. It's a
cloud application. It's a cloud application, and it helps. And help me here. It helps with remote access mostly. I saw a lot about whether client or clientless.
Yes.
The focus was on getting end users into your environment in a safe way. Is that the gist of?
Yes, essentially.
SASE?
So it's cloud-based. So the idea of if you think of the way legacy architectures were built, even if companies had regional presence, right, regional data centers, in order to enforce security across both their internet traffic, traffic going to SaaS applications, as well as internal VPN access into private resources, they would have to connect back to VPN concentrators or back to firewalls within those regions. Right?
Sure.
So, for example, the company that I worked for, we had points of presence in Denver, Colorado, Calgary, Alberta, and Melbourne, Australia. But if I was in Europe, right, I'm going to have to go all the way back to one of these points of presence in order to get to my resources. And so when you do something like Axis has done and built it across all 4 hyperscalers in the cloud, now you have on-ramps wherever those hyperscalers are located in the world. And so not only that, but we've also built out POPs in all different regions around the world. So if you're in Australia, you're getting to the nearest on-ramp to all 4 hyperscalers in Australia. Same with the US, and then there's multiple on-ramps and POPs located throughout each region. So in other words, you're ensuring that user performance, and you're also able to continue to secure all of your traffic. Whereas, again, in some instances, with everybody leaving the office, VPN concentrators were getting overloaded due to bandwidth requirements and licensing, and companies had to split off internet-bound traffic and SaaS-bound traffic and not protect it at all, just to keep users, just to keep the ability to give them access to internal resources. So in other words, if I'm in Australia, I don't have to come all the way back to Denver to reach internal resources or to find the best path to internet applications or SaaS applications to have that traffic protected. I'm going to go to my nearest POP in Australia. If I'm in Melbourne, it's in Melbourne. And if it needs to go to Office 365, it'll apply all that security there in Melbourne and take me to Office 365. If it needs to go somewhere internally, it'll do that. And when you update your policies, right, within the cloud management portal, it goes to all of those on-ramps and all of those POPs. So wherever those users are in the world, right, it gets there and guarantees that performance, but allows you to secure that traffic.
So I'm tracking you for traffic that needs to go to a SaaS application. So you go to the nearest on-ramp and then off to the SaaS you go. But then if you need internal corporate resources, you still have to come back to the internal anyway, right?
Yes.
You don't use the VPN concentrator. So you offload a little
you do
load there, but you have to eventually get back to the office.
You do. And so at that point, that's where we use things like AWS Global Accelerator is a great example, right? So AWS Global, and we use the respective solutions of the other hyperscalers as well. But if you're any company, right, you deploy an application today, you can use AWS Global Accelerator to basically utilize all of their on-ramps around the world. So let's say you create your application, it's based in Seattle. You have a user in Australia. He's going to jump onto the nearest AWS Global Accelerator on-ramp. But then he's going to take AWS's network all the way back to where that application is. And these hyperscalers, they're the best, they're the most modern, robust, best networks in the world. All that traffic is optimized, accelerated throughout there, right? And so, yes, so that's how you would get to like if I needed SSH server, if I need an SSH session to a server in Denver and I'm in Australia, that's how it would do that. It would jump onto the whatever respective on-ramp and take that network back to there. So you're bypassing the internet, right? Essentially, the internet, you can go all over the place and get, subject to all the different conditions and brownouts that are on the internet. Here, you're taking these hyperscaler backbones back. Absolutely.
Basically like a fast track.
Yes, basically, yeah. And then you have redundancy. So for if something happened with that AWS path, it would jump over to the next best one.
So I apologize that this is me, but
no, that's okay.
If you can help summarize SASE in a sentence or two,
yes.
How would you do that?
I would say SASE collapses security, multiple security features and functionality onto a cloud-delivered platform. Now, That's what it does. What is the advantage of it? Number one, it's going to reduce complexity for your engineers. Reducing complexity reduces risk for your company. Because when things start getting complex, then all of a sudden risk goes up because there's something that can fall through the cracks. Number two, it can also reduce costs for your company, right? But it's going to make things from an engineering side, it's going to make your engineering team more efficient. It's going to allow them to set policies for users anywhere they are in the world, right, with one rule. Because you can configure, if you have a user, you can configure their SWG, CASB, ZTNA policies all on one.
So it sounds like SASE is Aruba's sort of distributed VPN concentrator solution that you can set, that you can manage in the cloud.
Anywhere, but it's not just, so there's a difference between VPN and ZTNA.
Okay.
So VPN is a concentrator, right, on the, this is where we're getting a little more into the technical, so for your business guys, hanging out for a little bit. And you connect to that VPN concentrator, and then you're on that network. You can
Right.
With ZTNA, there is no inbound connection into your network. You actually have, you place small servers within a customer's architecture that make an outbound connection to the access cloud. And so they make an outbound connection so there's no forwarding traffic into the network or anything. A user will then connect to the cloud, and based on his identity, based on criteria, your rules, he gets access to only the applications that you allow him to. So it actually reduces the threat surface at your companies, because they don't know what IP address they're connecting to or anything. Everything's being proxied through the access environment. Okay, so a little bit different than VPN. The second thing is remember, now you can also police and secure their internet-bound traffic as well as their CASB traffic, their SaaS applications as well.
CASB again is
Cloud Access Security Broker. That takes care of all traffic going to SaaS applications. Not only whether you have access to it, but what you can do. So for example, if you have a company Dropbox and you say, oh, well, you know, Jason, he can access Dropbox and he can upload files, but he can't download files, right? You get that type of, and you get all the DLP, data loss prevention, things like that as well.
smart gateway
Exactly.
internet access.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. So question from DR standpoint.
Okay.
So if I decide to use the VPN,
Yes.
that it provides instead of the concentrator
Yes.
in a DR situation,
Yep.
I know usually in the DR situation, you're supposed to go through virtual VPN, right, which is probably what this is doing, the cloud-based VPN.
Okay.
So in that situation, how will you be able to access, actually, I want to rephrase that, because in the DR situation, you're already accessing your DR site on-prem. So if you're trying to fail back in the DR situation, fail back onto on-prem, and you still want to control access to the on-prem infrastructure or data on-prem, do you still have to maintain only that cloud VPN, the cloud-based VPN? Or I'm just trying to see the business sense or the technology sense in eliminating the concentrator. I'm only using VPN that you have with your infrastructure.
So when you say DR, are you saying it's a failure of your internal resources? So maybe like all of these users were accessing this particular data center. That data center's failed and we've moved over to another one. How is it getting to there? Is that what you're asking?
No, so the first one is the on-prem fails, and so now they're going to DR. Of course, they have to use the virtual VPN.
Yes.
So that's what you're saying. Now on the failback,
Yes.
how do you change the mapping of the IPs of the on-prem infrastructure?
Yes. So ideally it would be DNS based. We wouldn't be, so for the applications you want to give access to, we would be hitting maybe an FQDN, right? You know, fully qualified domain name, right? And so that way, when the DNS changes in your environment, then we automatically follow those changes. But if you're doing it IP based, yes, then you'd have to go into the system and say, okay, this application is no longer at this IP, it's at this IP, and then it would route for you from there.
I kind of have a question, if I could piggyback onto yours.
Yeah.
If it is IP based and it's agent based for access, could you set a, excuse me, a priority or wait to generate that DR solution switchback? So let's say it goes internally to this particular IP address.
Yeah.
It goes to DR.
Yes.
That new one comes back. Does the agent itself has the ability to wait that connection? So once it heartbeats back to the on-prem, it will switch back
Right.
over? I
Yeah.
think that's kind of following both those thoughts.
No, not at
So
this
there's no way to do that.
Yeah, no way to do that. So because it's all based on when you have so let's say you have two data centers, you're going to have a connector in each, right? And that will actually that'll communicate out to the access portal and give access essentially into your environment. And so you would either have to today go in and say, change the IP address of the application that you're giving, or say it's now coming from a different connector, right?
So there's no way on that main basically broker to say, okay, we're going to take 1.4 if it's live, and if it's not live, we can't hit that, we're going to take 2.7. But now that we can see 1.4 again, we're going to automatically reroute traffic.
Yes.
Is that something you
Yeah.
add into that?
Yeah. You know, it would be interesting on how to do that because essentially we're not on your network, right?
Right.
Or we're not participating in routing protocols, things like that. So is it time?
Yes.
Is it time? Okay. So, however, thank you. However, yeah, I don't believe it's on any of the roadmaps at this point in time, but you bring up a good point, right? As far as that is how can you participate, create some sort of automated process without being part of, say, BGP or OSPF reconvergence, right? You know, on that type of a thing, some sort of HSRP, right, process. So, all right. I'll have to bring that up to product management and say, hey, I'm getting asked this stuff. You guys need to figure it out.
Thanks.